explain to us what that means?
Well, the fact that stock is available to be issued doesn't necessarily mean that the corporation has to issue it. This is a newly formed corporation, and at the present time we haven't decided exactly who is going to own what. As soon as this is done, when I say we, incidentally, I want to point out that this is only the corporation. We are the corporate attorneys. I'm not handling, at the present time, anything else but the corporation. Now, when the format of the corporation is finally synthesized, then we will issue stock. I might point out this: it is a private corporation. It is not a public corporation. As far as I know, there is no intent now, and I don't think there ever will be an intent to go public. So this is all privately held, and it's just a matter of deciding who will get what. And at the present time, I don't feel that that's too important. I want to find out exactly what way the corporation is going to go and how we're going to go. When we decide that, then there'll be plenty of time to issue stock.
You've already had some requests to buy stock, I think.
Yes, we've had a number of people who have contacted us by telephone and in the mails asking us to buy various shares of stock in the Hells Angels. One person wanted to buy, I think it was 26 shares, which would, of course, be a controlling majority. That came in this morning.
The postcard?
Yes, it came from Orange County. He wanted me to send further details to him. As I said, this is a private corporation. The stock is not for sale to the public. And as far as I can foresee, there will not be a public issue. I think that they could capitalize on it, and if they do capitalize on it, why, it should be done in the most legal-like manner.
For instance, if someone wanted to make a movie about the Hells Angels and use the name Hells Angels in the film, they would not be able to do it now.
You're asking me to draw a legal conclusion. And let me preface it. I'll try and answer it, but let me preface it by one statement. A member of Howard Hughes' legal staff called our office when this little blurb appeared in Variety that the Hells Angels were incorporated. And I was informed that Howard Hughes had the name registered. And what did we intend to do? I believe that the law would certainly allow anyone to make a motion picture about the Hells Angels if they were, for example, a bunch of nuns who were trying to convert someone into angels rather than devils of Satan or something of that sort. But as to the purposes of this corporation, as set out in our bylaws, if someone tried to make a picture depicting the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club Incorporated or any of its employees or members, I think that we would probably have very valid legal grounds. It's never been tested. I don't know.
Does the incorporation also serve to protect them from, say, police harassment or any kind of activity on those lines?
Well, when we formed the corporation, of course, that's not in the bylaws and has nothing to do with the corporation, if there is such a thing as police harassment. But I think that being a corporation, perhaps employees of a corporation with funds, I think indirectly this might do what cannot be done directly. For example, if they are being harassed, and I'm not saying that the police are harassing them, because I'm not their spokesman. I'm only the corporate attorney. And I would say this, that a corporation with funds, able to fight, or able to present a position, would certainly be much stronger than a bunch of unincorporated individuals, because when they're all in an individual status, it's more or less confusion. This is a way of gathering forces together.
Will they eventually have a spokesman? Up to now, they remain fairly anonymous, don't they? I mean, you had two representatives, the Hells Angels, in your office, and they preferred to remain anonymous. But will eventually they come out in the open and have a spokesman and leaders?
Yeah. No, there's no question about that. The reason why they wanted to remain anonymous today, at this particular time, is because of some business negotiations that we're about to enter into. In fact, we have a meeting with some other businessmen and some attorneys at about 11:30 this morning. Now, as soon as I say, as soon as we have a little bit more of a format, a little bit more of an organization going, why, there's no question that they will make themselves available. They will have a president, a vice president, a secretary-treasurer, a board of directors, and these men will be available at any time, and you'll know who they are, their names, their addresses, and their phone numbers.
Mr. Castleman, will success spoil the Hells Angels? I think you've discussed this with them, that they may start making a lot of money and no longer be the rebels that they want to be.
I don't know. Again, I'm not the spokesman for the Hells Angels, but let me put it this way. We did have quite a conference in my office. This was last Saturday, and I tried to explain to them that they appear to be very happy the way they're living. They like what they do. They like the way they live, and that they're in a position whereby they could make a lot of money. And it seems that when they do make money, this brotherhood that they may have might cause, well, the money might cause squabbles. I don't know. But I think maybe they might change. They say, no, we won't change. We'll be the same people, even though we do have a lot of money. They'll be able to buy a lot of things that maybe they can't buy now. There'll be a great there'll be great avenues open to them that aren't open now. And I don't know whether it'll change them. All I did was I brought it up as sort of a secondary thought. They say no, that it won't change them. They say they're going to live their philosophy. They're going to live their life the way they feel they should live it, regardless of how much money they've got. I don't know.
Have you been criticized in legal circles for doing this? It just seems strange to see these raggle-taggle individuals in your immaculate law office here. Does this have some effect on your legal colleagues?
You say legal colleagues. I would say no in the law, in the legal circle. No, I don't think so. In fact, I think the lawyers themselves would look upon this as a smart move. If you want to talk about the layman, there's a lot of conclusions that they immediately jump to. And they say, why, if he's going to incorporate the Hells Angels, why, he must be one of them, and he must be this, and he must be that. And I have been accused, it's very interesting, I have been accused of being an unethical person, of being a very poor lawyer, because I've incorporated them. When I say I mean my partner, Mr. Adlin, and myself. And they don't seem to realize that the Hells Angels have the same rights of anyone else in our community. And if they want to form a corporation, they've got the right to form a corporation. And that a person shouldn't be chastised because they want to protect themselves legally. But as far as the legal circles are concerned, no, I would say that, and I haven't spoken to a great number of lawyers, but a number of lawyers have talked to me, and they said they thought it was, quote, a pretty cool move, unquote.
What about some of the activities that we hear about on the part of the Hells Angels? Well, for instance, they're wearing Nazi symbols. Does that set you back a little bit? Or?
Well, again, I have to emphasize that I am not a spokesman for the Hells Angels. Now,
but you're dealing with them.
I'm dealing with them, and I have discussed their philosophy with them. Of course, it's a great interest to me because there's something new and there's something different. Well, they're not new, they're different. They're different. And I've asked them the various reasons for some of their symbols and why they wear some of their symbols, and they've told me, and one of the reasons, and I hate to get into it because it's quite deep, but they say that the police wear a badge. They wear a uniform. And they don't agree with some of the police tactics. And they say the only thing we can do is we'll put on a badge. In other words, they'll ridicule the police by wearing a Nazi symbol. I know that as in general, they don't take these symbols seriously. They say it's a protest. It's a protest to them. And this is exactly what they mean it to be. And they get quite a kick out of it. They're laughing. They're laughing.
Trial. It's a state case in Oregon, Washington County, Oregon. But I never heard what the result was of it or if it went to trial. Garrett himself was, about that same time, charged with trafficking methamphetamine in a federal case down in California and got I believe he got a life sentence or something that would equal life. So I'm not, okay.
We have Speed.
Hi, terrific. Is it Garrigan or Garrett?
Garrigan.
Garrigan. What I'd like to do is to pronounce your name and then spell it for me, and then also tell me what your title is, how you want to be.
It's Clyde, C-L-Y-D-E, Garrigan, G-A-R-R-I-G-A-N. And I'm an assistant United States attorney for the District of New Hampshire.
Okay. Let's start with the basic thing is, who are the Hells Angels?
The Hells Angels are an international outlaw motorcycle gang. They have charters literally throughout the world.
And what are they about? What's their agenda? I mean, are they a bunch of aging, pathetic desperados from the 70s, or what?
Well, many of their members are involved in a wide variety of criminal activity. Many of them are convicted felons. In terms of the case that was investigated and prosecuted in the District of New Hampshire, we concentrated on their connections to methamphetamine trafficking.
That seems to be their basic, how they basically support themselves around the country. Do you know if that's true?
There have been many successful prosecutions of the Hells Angels for drug trafficking, in particular methamphetamine.
Yeah, what's their agenda? I mean, what is their raison d'etre? What do they...
Well, I think it's like most drug dealing conspiracies. There's a lot of money to be made in selling this particular drug, which is very popular in the biker subculture.
Speed, right?
Speed. They often refer to it as crank.
Crank.
Okay.
Now I understand in your case that there was I'm going to get on the speakerphone, on the receiver. I think it's easier. I understand there was an anonymous jury in your case.
Yes, there was.
I'm sorry.
Yes, there was an anonymous jury ordered in our prosecution.
Can you tell me, why did you have to have an anonymous jury? Why did the jury have to be anonymous?
Well, we were able to present evidence to the federal district court judge assigned to the case, Judge Fuste, that the Hells Angels had a long and very well documented history of attempting to obstruct justice by witness intimidation, interference and intimidation of the jurors, and other attempts to disrupt the judicial process.
Can you be more specific? What do you mean by obstructing justice? I mean, in any trial, don't they try to, obstruct justice? How are they different? I mean, isn't an anonymous jury kind of rare?
As far as we know, it was the first anonymous jury ordered in a case involving an outlaw motorcycle gang. Generally, they're used in cases involving more traditional organized crime groups like the mafia.
Was the reason to have them anonymous to protect the jury, or to keep them from bribing the jury? What was it?
Well, it really was to prevent them from having any way of having any contact with the jury. We also saw it and were granted an order that had to do with the behavior of spectators in court that included ordering the Hells Angels not to wear their colors or any of their other insignias. Because of the reputation of the Hells Angels for violence, it was our opinion, and an opinion adopted and shared by the court, that simply having members of the Hells Angels in court would have a negative effect, an intimidating effect on the jury.
So you feel that they have this aura of violence and they have this aura of intimidation about them?
Well, I think it's more than an aura. It's a well-documented fact over the years.
How violent are they?
I'm not sure I could quantify it. Many of their members have convictions for acts of violence, I can tell you that.
Many of the members have convictions for murder, or can you say that?
I'm not sure I could say that. There have been members convicted of murder, but I'm not sure I could document it offhand.
All right. When I spoke to Yves Levine, he told me that he said that they were more powerful than the mafia, and in this Fortune magazine, he says they're right after the mafia. Just how powerful are they?
Well, I think you have to keep in mind that they're a truly international organization. They have chapters in North and South America. They're rapidly expanding in Europe. They have a chapter in Africa. They have several chapters in Australia and New Zealand. It's a fairly small group of individuals, estimated at about approximately 1,000 members. Because of that tight-knit organization and their international connections, I think they're in a position to be involved in criminal conduct on an international scale.
Can you get a name of what kind of criminal conduct?
Well, I really can't talk beyond the facts of our case. Those are my instructions.
Okay. I guess the other thing is, how much of a threat do you think they are then? I mean, if there was only 1,000 members worldwide, how much of a threat could they possibly be?
I think that anyone who's involved in the investigation and prosecution of outlaw motorcycle gangs will tell you that they're some of the most dangerous criminal organizations in existence at this time.
I've been told, and one by Mr. Levine and also by some other people, that in many of the clubs, in New York including, that in order to become a member you have to, quote, off somebody. Levine says you have to kill somebody. They give you a list of their club's enemies and you pick somebody to kill, and then you bring them the newspaper article showing that the person was stabbed or shot or whatever method you chose. Is that true? Do you know of evidence that, yes, that is true?
Can we go off the record?
Stop?
Yeah.
Yeah, stop for a second. What?
Okay, Diane, we have speed.
Okay, great. Well, here's a kind of a generic one. How would you describe the group? How would you describe the Hells Angels? I mean, are they a motorcycle club or is that just a facade?
Well, certainly motorcycles play a very large part in their lifestyle. The Hells Angels are broken up into approximately, well, more than 70 local chapters that are fairly small groups of individuals and can be as small as 6. In our case, where we prosecuted the Lowell, Massachusetts chapter, we were able to convict 12 members and associates and prospects of that particular chapter, which was a very high percentage of the membership. They were extremely fraternal and are manifest a high degree of loyalty, not only to their brother members, but to the club as a whole. That's one of the things that makes it extremely difficult to investigate and prosecute them, is this bond of loyalty that, by the way, is enforced by some draconian measures if it's violated.
Yeah, I've heard even if you don't ride in the right place in line, they have a captain with a baseball bat.
Well, they're very disciplined, and it's highly organized, and very, very tightly structured. And that's one of the reasons it's extremely difficult to investigate and prosecute.
Can they be compared to the Mafia?
Well, I think to the extent that they have a hierarchical structure, that they have essentially blood oaths of loyalty, and to the extent that they're involved in criminal conduct, yes, I think they could be.
How do they differ? I mean, are they mafioso on bikes?
Well, I think one of the clear differences is that the Hells Angels don't make any attempt to hide the existence of their organization. They obviously they wear insignias in public regularly and gather regularly in groups and are proud of their identity as Hells Angels. The Mafia, of course, I believe, still deny that they exist.
That brings me to another interesting question. I mean, I have video of a pack of Hells Angels, one guy dressed as Santa, riding their bikes, all with toys for tots. And I understand they also do blood runs where they donate blood, and they do a lot of charitable work. Why would an organized crime organization do these things?
From our point of view, it's a form of propaganda. In our case, when we prosecuted the Lowell chapter of the Hells Angels, they, when they attempted to establish themselves in the state of New Hampshire, came to New Hampshire and made offers of charitable donations to various organizations. Some of the first things they did when they came into the state in order to get positive publicity for themselves and to, I think to some extent, to allay the fears and of the public that they're a dangerous organization.
So you think that they don't want people to, I mean, I thought that they wanted everybody to know how tough and rough they are, but they don't? They don't want people to think they're dangerous?
Well, I think they're very proud of their image as outlaws, but I also think that they do not want to be closely scrutinized by the public or the police.
Okay. How bad are they? In other words, how much of a threat to society are they then? I mean, should we be concerned about them?
Well, based on the investigation and prosecution that we conducted in our case, they attempted to essentially create a market and introduce into that market methamphetamine into the state of New Hampshire. We viewed that attempt as an extremely dangerous act and an act that was very threatening to the citizens of this state.
Okay. Do you think that people who think that, for all the people out there who think they're, the Hells Angels are has-been aging hippies from another era, what do you say to those people?
I think that's naive.
I'm sorry. Could you? I can't.
I said I think it's naive.
No, you can't. I can't use my questions on in the interview. I need.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying.
Going to know what you're talking about. Because we have to go back a little bit. So if you could put it in a complete phrase so that people would understand what you're saying, what you're talking about, it'd be easier. For all the people who think they're nothing but a bunch of...
Okay, how about this? I think that anyone who would assume that the Hells Angels are merely aging motorcycle riding hippies are naive, and that would be a dangerous mistake to make.
I have now in the Fortune article, it said that they're building back up. They had this whole bunch of... They had Operation Rough Rider in the mid-'80s, which kind of was a national, and especially in the East, kind of decimated their leadership. Now Sonny Barger is out again. He was out, I think, at the end of the night. It says, do you have any evidence that they're building back up and that they're a growing menace?
They are expanding, based on my conversations with other law enforcement officials, including law enforcement officials from Europe. They're rapidly expanding in Europe. As you indicated, their spiritual leader and head, Sonny Barger, was recently released from prison.
So they're rapidly expanding in Europe? How about in the United States?
Well, I think they're expanding worldwide, but they're under close law enforcement scrutiny in this country, an example being our prosecution of Doc Pascuti, who was a national officer in the organization and who was, as a result of the prosecution, sentenced to 15 years in prison. I suppose law enforcement in the United States has had more experience dealing with outlaw motorcycle gangs as compared to our European counterparts.
Are they into anything else, any other illegal activities besides manufacture and selling of methamphetamines?
Our case focused on drug trafficking.
Do you know of any other activity they're into?
There have been reports that they're involved in a wide variety of criminal activity, including the interstate transportation of stolen motorcycles.
How about prostitution? Anything else? Was it gambling? Anything like the typical?
We know that they've been involved in extortion. We didn't have any evidence during our case of prostitution or gambling.
Any extortion? Was anybody muscled out so they could get their business started in your area?
That wasn't charged in our indictment. We received information that there might have been some extortion, particularly, I'm trying to think, in an attempt to take over businesses, yes.
And can you just say that in a more cohesive way?
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Sitting in the middle there.
Well, did that come out at the detention hearing?
It did. Was that the company that tried to take over in Marlboro, Mass?
It really wasn't part of the case, though. It is part of the record, though, in the case.
Yeah, it was part of the record, but trying to extort their way into businesses.
Well, I could say something like, how about this? Let's try this. During our prosecution of the Lowell chapter of the Hells Angels, we did discover information that members of that organization had attempted to take over a legitimate business in Massachusetts by threats and extortion. That was not charged in our indictment in the case.
But you had evidence of that?
Right.
Okay. Is there anything you'd want to say to people? I mean, should the budgets be increased to monitor outlaw motorcycle gangs? I mean, is there a need for this, or anything that the public should know about them when they're, going to the polls or when they're talking to their law enforcement or to their politicians? I mean, are they a minor threat, and we should be worrying more about different, more on the Colombian drug dealers and the other groups that come on in, the Asian gangs and stuff like that?
Well, I think it's very important for the public to be aware of who these outlaw bikers really are. It's a continuing problem. They are firmly entrenched, and by their very structure, they're here for the long run. The prosecutions that have been conducted against these organizations across the United States has not stopped them and has not necessarily stopped their expansion. It's only slowed it. I think it's very important that law enforcement continue to dedicate resources to the investigation and prosecution of criminal acts by outlaw motorcycle gangs such as the Hells Angels.
You know that they say that they're not a criminal organization, they're just a motorcycle club. What do you say to that?
It's not correct.
I mean, you say you're lying. That's wrong. It's not correct.
There you go. There's a good line. The criminal convictions speak for themselves in terms of their protestations that they're not involved in criminal activity.
They say, and I'll just take it from this
Sure.
portion, that a lot of the members were in trouble at one time or another, but it had nothing to do. It was all outside the club. It had nothing to do with the club.
Well, we convicted 12 members in prospect of the Hells Angels within the last year, so I don't think that's that's just from one chapter. The Hells Angels are an extremely sophisticated and knowledgeable group when it comes to conspiracy law and the RICO laws. And in many ways, their members' criminal activity is now structured to avoid and to protect the club from criminal prosecution, the club itself.
Okay, so they know their way around a courtroom.
Precisely.
Do you know how wealthy they are? I mean, how can they afford all these lawyers and I mean, as far as I know, they're one of the few drug dealers who are fighting at this kind of confiscation law. You know, the confiscation of property law.
What's your I'm not sure what your question is.
I guess, I mean, how wealthy are they? How can they afford all these lawyers and stuff? I mean, it's expensive to defend yourself.
Well, for any drug trafficking organization, hiring the top legal help is that's the cost of doing business, and it has to be provided for.
So they make enough to hire a good legal help.
They hire very good legal help, yes.
All right, thank you. Is there anything that I missed or anything that?
Dave, anything? Any bon mots we should throw in here? That's a good point. The fellow that we convicted, Doc Pascuti, was the president of the Lowell chapter, was also one of the, had been a Hells Angel for 20 years and was also a national officer in the organization. And for them to deny that they're involved in criminal activity for somebody of his high rank in that organization to be convicted of conspiring to distribute methamphetamine in New England, I think would undermine their argument that they're not involved in criminal activity. Their own national leaders are involved in criminal activity.
Okay. Right. I think we've got to that we get that across so that people understand what they're dealing with.
Well, actually, the judge in his order, I could say something about that. In our prosecution, the district court judge made a specific finding in ordering the anonymous jury that the Hells Angels have a long, well-documented history and propensity for violence, and that they use their reputation for violence in an attempt to obstruct justice and manipulate the criminal justice system